People across Brazil will head to the polls on Sunday to pick who they want to serve as their nation's president.
The election pits two ideological extremes against one another. On the right is incumbent nationalist President Jair Bolsonaro, and on the left, former President Luiz Inácio Lula de Silva. For more, let's bring in Vice President of the Council of the Americas, Eric Farnsworth. Eric, thanks for joining us. What makes this election so significant, and why are people, not just in Latin America, but around the world, watching for the results?
Well, thanks for having me. It's a really important election in the history of Brazil for several reasons, not the least of which is Brazil's a relatively young democracy, and the institutions of democracy have been questioned in this election cycle, not the least of which by one of the leading candidates, the current President Jair Bolsonaro. So there's a real question in terms of the democratic institutions and their ability to hold. And as the largest democracy in Latin America and one of the largest democracies in the world, it's critical, in my view, that democracy be continued strong and strengthened in Brazil. The second is clearly an issue for the world in terms of global climate change. Brazil maintains sovereignty over the vast majority of the Amazon, which has been called the lungs of the earth. And the policies of the two leading candidates are dramatically different in terms of Amazon protection. So that clearly is going to impact going down the road global climate change efforts.
So let's talk more specifically about the candidates, starting with President Bolsonaro. So what challenges does he face as the incumbent?
Well, he is the incumbent, that's right. And so he has presided over Brazil's response to the COVID pandemic crisis, which hit Brazil particularly hard and exposed some real divisions in society. He has a sluggish economy, not entirely his fault. Of course, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has contributed to that. Inflation has been high, and the central bank has been forced to raise interest rates. So that's hitting consumers, which tends to be the largest block of the opposition. In other words, the middle and lower classes in Brazil have been hit particularly hard. And so they may be more motivated to come to the polls. At the same time, it's been suggested that Brazil's politics over the last several years have been somewhat chaotic, and many Brazilians are looking for a reprieve from that and a return to normalcy, if you want to put it that way. So he's got an uphill battle in some ways. That's why polls have him not finishing in first for the elections that start on Sunday.
Eric, Bolsonaro's challenger, De Silva, has quite the story. Can you tell us more about him and the challenges he faces in this election?
He really does. He's been president twice before of Brazil, in 2003 to 2010, which was a time of particular strength in Brazil's economy and growing into a much more important role in the global stage. And he left office on a very, relatively popular. He was accused, his party was accused of corruption, so he does have some of those issues that he has to contend with. But, look, many people in Brazil remember the good days, which when commodities prices were high, he was president. He took advantage. Poverty was decreasing, and so many people remember that. But at the same time, and one of the reasons why Bolsonaro was actually elected last election was because the Brazilian people considered the party of Lula de Silva, the Workers' Party, to be very corrupt. And so they were sick of it, and they wanted to get corruption out of politics. And so the fact that he's such a strong contender this time, and according to polls, the likely winning candidate, means that something has gone wrong over the last 4 years, and the people are returning to strength in terms of support for Lula.
Yeah, Eric, let's talk about that a bit more, because despite that corruption scandal, De Silva does have a lot of support. So what does that signal about the overall direction that Brazilians want to be heading in as a nation?
I think it's a really important question. The Brazilian electorate is divided. There are people who still, the base for Bolsonaro is very strong. The base for Lula is very strong. And so, there is a portion of the Brazilian population that wants a new direction for Brazil with a different approach to social issues, for sure, with a stronger economy, perhaps different approach to ecological issues, et cetera. But at the same time, if Lula da Silva is actually elected and inaugurated, what's going to happen, presumably, is he's not going to have much of a honeymoon, because you're still going to have a very motivated and angry, in some ways, part of the Brazilian electorate that will not be his supporters. I think a lot of folks in Brazil are going to vote against a candidate rather than for a candidate, which means that whoever's elected is not going to have a huge mandate to govern, particularly if he has a divided legislature, which is entirely possible, and that's going to make governance complicated. So even if the elections come out perfectly well in terms of democracy and institutions and all of that, and I anticipate largely that they will, you're still going to have a complicated scenario of governance for Brazil as we head into 2023. It's going to be some choppy waters ahead. It's going to need full cooperation and the reduction of division in the Brazilian population.
All right, more to come. Eric Farnsworth, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.